Hi, my name is Natalia Duque Wilckens. I am an assistant professor at NC State University in the Department of Biological Sciences. We have a lab that studies the neuroimmune interactions driving behavioral pathology. And I also teach two classes here at NC State. One of them is neuroimmunology in brain health and disease, and the other one is neuroimmunotoxicology, in which we go over environmental contaminants that can affect immune cells, which in turn affect how the brain works.
What advice would you give to your undergraduate self?
I mean, plenty of advices, but I think one of the main ones would be to take it slow and enjoy the process. I feel like, and this is increasing, like this keeps increasing over the years, I feel like we are putting too much pressure on ourselves to have all the answers immediately, to know where we're going, what are we going to do later on, how are we going to get there, without really enjoying the actual process. And I feel like, each life stage is so important that it's important to actually be able to enjoy it and learn from it, while you are like living it, as opposed to just like be constantly thinking about the future and the future outcome. The other thing too is that it's okay to just not have the answers right away or change your mind multiple times. That's totally fine. Nothing is going to define you forever in this life. And I feel like that's something that I learned with time. I studied veterinary medicine before getting into research in neuroscience. And I was putting a lot of pressure on myself when I realized that that's not what I wanted to do. Then I ended up like deciding to make the switch after struggling a lot, instead of just like saying, okay, great, I have a new interest, I should just explore it. So I feel like every time, like not only myself, but when I have undergrads talking to me, like crying or being like very overwhelmed, I'm just like, just take your time. There's time to get to know yourself and the world you live in, and just enjoy the process, because learning is so beautiful regardless of the outcome. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
What is the coolest thing you have ever discovered or been a part of?
It's a good question, and I feel like the easy answer would be to find, like a flashy discovery or what got me like my PhD or the biggest paper I published. But in reality, I feel like the biggest discovery is kind of associated to my last answer, which is just learning that every single little thing on a daily basis is what's really need to be valued, because there's no big flashy discovery without the awareness on a daily basis of everything that's around you. And I feel like my emotional responses to big things that I have achieved have generally been lower than those when I, for example, finally get an experiment to work after 3 months of troubleshooting, or when one of my trainees gets into grad school, gets married. And like I feel like those things are so much more important. So I would say that, like, to answer your question, like the biggest discovery is to discover that the small things matter a lot more than anything else.
What does your research focus on?
The main goal of my lab is to kind of contribute to our understanding of behavioral and psychiatric health and disease. And we specifically focus on these immune cells called mast cells, which are innate immune cells that are mostly known for their role in allergic responses, but are also widely distributed like throughout the tissues in the body, and they're highly prevalent in the brain across species, from like all the way from amphibians to humans. And really, the cool thing is that we don't really know much about them at all. So they are there in the brain. They're highly conserved, which suggests that they play a pivotal role in complex nervous system physiology, but we do not understand who they are. So one of the main lines of research in my lab is to try to uncover them. And for that, we use several different approaches. We use mouse models, we use culture models, we use different approaches like proteomics and transcriptomics. We use like mast cell tissue replacements to basically kind of like try to figure out how putting mast cells in a brain or taking them out changes how brain works. And in addition to that, we have another line of research basically connecting the fact that early life exposure to either social stressors like a maternal separation stress or environmental contaminants, which is one thing that I'm really interested in, affects our immune function for life, and specifically it affects, we are studying how they affect our mast cells, and how that in turn can like increase the incidence of like multisystemic disease resulting from that early life exposures, specifically anxiety and depressive like disorders. So yeah, those are the two main lines of research in my lab right now.
When did you know that you loved neuroscience?
I've always been interested in animal behavior, like forever, and that's why I was so into it that I thought veterinary medicine was the way to go, because I wanted to learn about how birds behave or cats behave. I really quickly learned that veterinary medicine is nothing really focused on behavior and neuroscience. So when I was studying, like when I was trying to be a veterinarian, I like was focusing mostly on like learning about the nervous system and how it gets affected by different like diseases. But then in order to get my DVM in Chile, I had to do a thesis for which I joined a neuroscience lab just to kind of like try to figure out if that was something that I could get into. And basically, as soon as I stepped in the lab, I was like, holy moly, this is it. Like, I love it. This is what I want to do. I feel like in the more I learned about neuroscience, like that was the moment I learned about it. But then now when I think about it, I just love neuroscience so much because it's not only about like studying how the brain works, right? It's like kind of like understanding our identity and how we communicate with the world, how we experience emotions. So it's all about how all of us interact with each other. So it's I feel like the implications of the study of neuroscience are so wide and important for our world.